Here's the uncomfortable truth that we need to be talking about. For a lot of us, again, this is not a transfer of wealth. In some ways, it's an eviction. For the Black family, we've seen over the course of years, with respect to the loss of a loved one, a lot of times we don't have a steward that's in place to be able to navigate us through that ownership. And so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into what that looks like, and more importantly, what things we need to put in place to make certain we're not leaving our loved ones out to dry with respect to the assets that we may have and the equity and stakes, whether it's in business or whether it's in real estate and things of that sort.
Before we go any further, we need to be honest about what this moment really is. You've probably heard the term silver tsunami. Economists talk about it like it's some sort of gift, a once-in-a-generation transfer of wealth. But for some families, it's not a transfer, it's a setup. It's what happens when someone passes and there's no plan, no paperwork, and no steward. The system already knows exactly how to move faster than the family can think. So when we talk about the silver tsunami today, we're not just talking about theory. We're talking land, homes, businesses, and equity, and the quiet ways those things disappear while everything looks legal on paper. If we do not name it for what it is, we can't stop it. And that is why this conversation matters.
So the silver tsunami is what we're talking about. Are you familiar with, I know you're in California and you spent a lot of time at the beach, and as a part of you spending some time at the beach working on your tan so you can look like me. No. Let me back that up. You don't like the sun.
The sun.
So, yeah. So
I don't look like you.
So are you familiar with Santa Monica and the history of Santa Monica?
I am familiar with Santa Monica, not so much the history. Obviously, it's been in the news in the last couple of years, but when I lived there, I had no idea about any of that.
Yes. Interesting thing about Santa Monica, and my understanding, a story came out in 2021, I believe it was, where the city of Santa Monica had put out an all hands call back to individuals who had either moved away from the city to move back to either reclaim or get a portion of what it is that the city was doing to rectify some wrongs that were done back in the 30s through 40s with respect to the construction of Highway 10, as well as some other things that were happening, we saw happening in other parts of the United States. But specifically in Santa Monica, you think of Santa Monica today, you think of wealthy homes, you think of white ownership, but Santa Monica used to be a predominantly Black neighborhood. And what happened was the local government there enacted these laws that mandated or considered the homes or the property of the people of color as blight. And so because they were tagged as blight or an eyesore, those individuals were either forced to sell or removed from their homes. And that land that was in some ways stolen from them was then resold to individuals that did not look like them. What say you about something?
I think that it's brilliant if I worked for the state and I was on that other side, because everything that they did was legal. All of it was legal. It was using that policy to extract the wealth and the ownership from Black families, but it was all legal. The challenge that many of those homeowners had was that they were uninformed of what they could do, right? So I think it was eminent domain. Is that what they used?
Yes.
And right, it's legal, but there are things that families can do to protect wealth. Like, we always know that the first offer is not the final offer. And so, just making sure that communities come together and it's not one-to-one, it's many-to-one. So if you're going to bring your lawyers, then we can pull together our neighbors and fight. But I just thought that, you look at most of these cases where Black land is taken away from the owners, it's all policy that's used to manipulate and to take advantage of the uninformed.
Well, yeah, I take your point there. With using eminent domain, one of the things that we have seen specifically with respect to minority, whether it's Black or Latino neighborhoods, is you will have individuals who are again, going back to the politics of it all, being informed, being on these city councils, being on these local councils that will allow you to see what's coming down the pike so you can have these discussions so that when they do come in and say, okay, hey, Len, your property is an eyesore. You're not you're not keeping up with what needs to be happening from a maintenance standpoint. And so we're going to fine you. And because you don't or may not have the resources to be able to do the repairs that are needed, those fines add up. And at a certain point, those fines become hundreds, become thousands, and you're behind the eight ball. You don't have the money to pay those fines. And that property is then, unfortunately, taken over by the city or taken over by predators who may be looking at the local ordinances or looking at the courthouse to see, okay, Lynn is behind in her property taxes. Lynn is behind in terms of fines here. So we're going to go in and we're going to buy this property. And all of a sudden now you become not necessarily a property owner, but you become a tenant. So we've seen that with respect to Santa Monica. We also saw that in some ways in the early 2000s with Katrina and New Orleans. I know you love New Orleans because I know you love beignets and all those wonderful delicacies that you will partake of when you're in New Orleans.
I don't love that humidity.
Well, okay. Yeah, but that's a part of New Orleans. How can you not?
Again, so I don't love New Orleans because I can't deal with the humidity.
Okay, but you like the food.
I like the food, but I don't like the heat.
You can't have the heat without
but I don't
food.
want the heat.
You can't have the food without the heat. The heat makes the food.
Okay, well, then I like New Orleans. I don't love it.
Okay. All right. So, by the way, for those who are celebrating Mardi Gras, happy Mardi Gras to you at this particular point because we're in Mardi Gras season in New Orleans. But with Katrina, and I was in New Orleans. Do you say New Orleans or New Orleans?
New Orleans?
I see, and I pronounce it
New Orleans. That's what I say, New Orleans. I call it New Orleans. New Orleans, that's what I say. I had to make it natural. New Orleans. I'm going down to New Orleans.
Nolens. So I was there 2004, it was 2003, 2004, and spent a lot of time in the city of New Orleans during that time. The city obviously has such a vibrant history, and I'm not one that would hang out on Bourbon Street. I typically like to hang out on Frenchman's with the locals. Going to New Orleans, Katrina, and then post-Katrina literally was like night and day. It was a ghost town. I think I was there a couple months after Katrina hit because we were doing some type of conference. And I remember staying at the Marriott, which is right on Canal Street. It was almost like a ghost town. And you go through the neighborhoods and one thing about trauma is individuals love trauma porn. And New Orleans used to have these tours, the Katrina tours, and they may still have it. Yeah, it was literally called the Katrina tour.
That is horrible.
So you would go on this tour and it would tour you around the neighborhoods of what it is that Katrina had done with respect to the damage. And you could see where they had the X marked on some of the properties and, you know, the numbers, which would tell you whether or not they found a body or not.
Oh my God.
And
that is absolutely horrible.
Yes.
I love ghost tours, but I don't love that.
So going on that tour in New Orleans, you could see the impact of how Katrina damaged the lower Ninth Ward, other wards that were predominantly African-American. And then you go up to the Garden District where the Peyton Mannings of the world live. And you see these nice French style homes and none of them were touched. And so you have this thing about why is it that some communities were destroyed and some were preserved. And part of it is because of how the levees were built. And I don't know if you saw this documentary about, I think it was called When the Levees Broke or something like that. It was about Katrina and it was about the levees. And it was about the fact that they knew that if certain storms happened at a certain magnitude, that it would breach the levees, and those levees would then flood those neighborhoods that were lower income. So when you think about the wealth and the loss of wealth with respect to the Black families that were impacted that never went back or couldn't go back, or if they went back, they would have to rebuild and it would cost them thousands to rebuild.
That's because they valued that property before Katrina. So if they said, you know what, this property was worth $40,000, so we're just going to give you $40,000, and it's going to cost $250,000 to rebuild. Well, it looks like you just lost it, and the Garden District has expanded. Okay, bye.
So you're saying that in some ways redlining happened, where the banks came in and they undervalued African-American or brown neighborhoods. And if you were Len and you had a house that was worth $100,000, you thought, but it would cost you $25,000 to repair it, then you would not have been able to do all the repairs that you needed to do in order to be able to live in that house.
Yeah,
and so in a case like that, what do? You just leave the house.
No. Okay, so when we were talking about eminent domain, one of the things that I think that would be helpful in this, I'm just going to go back, if you don't mind if I circle back. This is something that Charlie Lewis had talked about. That would be like the creating those LLCs. And when Big Mama or whomever passes that along, a lot of times people can't pay the property taxes or that maintenance. Putting money into an LLC every month, the family members put in, I don't know, $50 or something. I don't know, something that they could reasonably afford, so that when maintenance comes or property tax, they can fix it up. There's not this huge bill, but if you put it in every month, then hopefully that keeps the ownership there. So that's for that Santa Monica. But then I'm thinking about like with Katrina and that scenario we just talked about. If just because they said it's worth $40,000, same with me doing my property tax, I just get an independent property appraisal. But that for people in those neighborhoods, it's going to cost money. So that's another reason and another scenario where the neighbors have to come together. It's not just I'm going out and I'm getting a property appraisal. I need the collective to come together, and we're going to get this appraised by an independent firm that's not from New Orleans, because as much as those beignets are hot, corruption and the morality, it's also hot.
Well, I take your point there. And I do think that from a political standpoint, when you think about the banking system and the real estate industry and things of that sort, we would not be being honest with ourselves if we thought that those individuals came in at a lot of times with our best interests at heart. So I take your point there.
They didn't come in with their best interests at heart. And I mean, the president at the time didn't even come in. He just did a flyover. Ooh, that looks bad.
It wasn't. That's when Bush 43 did lose he lost the plot when he did that and he flew over New Orleans. I think because he was doing fine in the public side.
Why is he doing fine, John?
With a lot of the public, he was doing fine.
With Republicans, okay, fine. He was doing okay.
When he flew over Katrina, it was like, hey, you guys look bad down there.
It looks terrible. Pull it up a little bit. Okay, thank you.
That was the aha, oh shit moment where it was like, you considered yourself a compassionate conservative. You weren't showing a lot of compassion there. And so from that standpoint, it wasn't his finest moment. Speaking of which, he got a standing ovation at a game last night. I think it was SMU playing Notre Dame. And he and Barbara went to a basketball game and got a standing ovation.
It's like when you dated
someone. Hold on.
God, you're terrible, you're whatever. Then you get with Mr. from The Color Purple, and you're like, you know what? You weren't so bad, Harper.
So you say that we're missing Bush 43 right now with everything that's going on with the shit show?
In retrospect, compared to what we have, you weren't so bad.
Okay.
Sure, you flew over Katrina. Sure, you had some fake weapons of mass destruction. But was it really that bad in comparison?
Hold on. I don't blame him for the mass destruction because the man tried to kill his daddy. So if a man tried to kill my daddy, I may have to come up with something to go in and say, you know what, we're going to chase you to the ends of the earth to be able to get you now. That said, I agree with you that in retrospect, we thought Bush 43 was bad. God said, you
want to see bad? It's like a black baby boomer mama. You want to cry? I'm going to give you something to cry about. Okay, you already did. That's why I'm crying.
So back to New Orleans. With New Orleans, the thing that bothers me to this day is because you think about Houston was impacted, Atlanta was impacted, Memphis was impacted. The term I want to use is not the right term, and I know I'm going to offend someone when I say it because I've heard people use it before. And I bristled. They called them the New Orleans refugees, and they weren't refugees. They were citizens that came because their homes had been destroyed by a natural disaster. But a lot of those families were never to go back to New Orleans. A lot of those families still to this day are still in Houston, Atlanta, Dallas, or whatever. And so you think about the individuals that were impacted. New Orleans used to be a predominantly, and it still is, but it had a large African-American population. It's less so today because you did not have those individuals go back. And one of the things that bothers me is the extraction of the wealth that was lost in the very New Orleans. It's always been like a dirty, gritty town. It was never the sexiest city. It always had that dirt under the fingernail type feel to it. And that's what made it great with respect to the culture and the food and the people. But when you extract that, you sort of lose what makes New Orleans New Orleans. And so we have, in some ways, government incompetence with respect to Katrina happening that displays and creates the unfair extraction of wealth. In Santa Monica, we had the policies that happened. And then I want to talk about the great state of South Carolina.
Before we transition over to Tim Scott's state, let's talk, you know what, I'm with you with the New Orleans refugee. I mean, New Orleans displays, New Orleans survivor. There's so many other things that are less charged. So let's leave it there, and then you can transfer over or pivot over to Tim Scott and your great state.
Great state of South Carolina. The great state of South Carolina. Obviously, I am biased because I am from the great state of South Carolina, but I wanted to use South Carolina and specifically Charleston and the Gullah Geechee community with New Orleans because they're so intertwined. And I've had multiple conversations with multiple people that I will say Charleston has better food than New Orleans. And when I say that, people look at me like I have two heads. And I said, no, we'll have that argument day in and day out. Yeah, with respect to cuisine, the Gullah Geechee, Charleston, the Black community traditionally came through that seaport. And what has happened with respect to heirs property in the state of South Carolina is if you had Lynn's people come over 1693 and Lynn worked the land, or her people worked the land, because you would have been a house person. You obviously hate being in the sun.
Oh, I would have been combing Becky's hair. Like, I can't do this heat. No, that's not for, I'm not for that. I comb hair and occasionally dust. Like, that's what I do.
Occasionally dust. Okay.
Occasionally. I can't be doing that all day. It's hot. So no.
Okay. So if you are an individual's family and your family owned land, we did not, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, have the land lease or the land deed to say that when Lynn's ancestors passed away, that property was inherited by Lynn and her people. And so it became what is known as heirs property. Now, what happened is, or what has been happening is, you see a lot of these, I call them predatory developers, that will come in and they will say, there are four of you. There's Lynn and her three siblings, right? All of you have 25. They will find the weakest link of you who is saying, okay, I have no desire to go back to Charleston. I have no desire to live there permanently. And I'm okay with selling my 25%. They will get that person's 25%. And then they will take the rest of you to court because you can't legally prove that this is your property. And they will go and get a court order to put the entire piece of land, because they have that partition, they can put the entire piece of land up for auction. And now, because it's in the legal realm and they can bid on it, they can outbid you. And you've lost your land based on the fact that you have a brother or sister who is incompetent, and so they're 25%.
Well, I don't know if they're incompetent. They just like to be in that area like you, 48 hours and I'm out of here. And I get that because I feel the exact same way when I cross the Red River. But I also, like we've already talked about this, my grandparents had so much land in Oklahoma, like all over the place. Like for our farm, my grandfather's like, it has to stay in the family. And I'm just going to just touch on what Charlie Lewis said. I thought this was so interesting. And our family's actually having these conversations now because we were like, whoa, he's right that it needs to stay bloodline family. I'm sorry. I know some of my cousins are going to be like, their wives like, I hate that whore. But it has to stay in the family. And I think that one of the things that is important is having a family land agreement. That if you're like something like a family land agreement, another LLC, and saying that if you decide to sell, the family has the first opportunity to buy. Right, so you can't sell outside of the family. You can sell to another cousin, you can sell to whatever, but you can't sell outside the family. And then putting those in the stipulation when you're inheriting or giving it to other people. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
I'm just saying that there has to be some type of protection because there are people that are like, I never, or there could, that property could be associated with trauma for them. And they're like, I don't want anything to do with this house. I mean, those switches that I got on my behind hurt, and I don't ever want to think about it again. Something like that. And there just has to be a way for the family to keep that land, because you're right, there are predators out there. They're just like, who's the weakest one? Who lives in Atlanta and has a different life and acts like he never, ever, ever heard of Dillon, South Carolina? Oh, that one.
First of all, I'm offended that you would use the great state
John, those were hypotheticals. I wasn't saying anyone's name. That's just a hypothetical scenario. I'm sorry
Right.
you felt triggered by that, but I'm just using hypotheticals.
So what's the point of all this? The point is, the civil tsunami is not some future event. It's happening right now. And whether it becomes a transfer of wealth or an extraction event depends on what families do before something happens, not after. See, every example we talked about today, whether it was Santa Monica, New Orleans, or South Carolina, they were all different places, but the same pattern. When ownership is informal, when paperwork is missing, when nobody is designated as the steward of the asset, the system steps in and finishes its job. And it does it legally, quietly, and efficiently. That's the part that people miss. Wealth doesn't usually disappear in dramatic ways. It leaks out through policy, fines, taxes, valuations, and court processes that families are unprepared to fight. So the point isn't fear, the point is preparation. So if you have land, a home, a business, digital assets, equity of any kind, and there's no plan for what happens when you're gone, you don't really have ownership yet. You have exposure. This is why the structure matters. There's LLCs, trusts, family agreements, native stewards, maintenance funds, independent valuations, not because you're trying to be fancy, but because you're trying to be fair to the people you love. And here's the hard truth. Love without structure is not protection. Good intentions don't survive probate. Memories don't survive courtrooms. Paperwork does. So what's the point? The point is to stop confusing hope with strategy. The point is to stop assuming the system will do the right thing. What your family built should not become someone else's inheritance. And that's the point. While you're out and about today, time to do something nice for yourself. And while you're at it, take the time to do something nice for someone else. Until next time, we'll talk to you.
And that's a wrap. Thank you for listening and spending your time with us on I Take Your Point. For more unfiltered conversations like this, click the link in the description. Huge thank you to our production team. We couldn't do this without you. Quick disclaimer, the views shared are those of the host and guest and are for informational purposes only, not professional advice. Keep building your own table, take care, and be well.